Get local breaking news alerts when you download the Channel 9 News app.
Good morning. I'm Channel 9's Darlene Jones. Now relieving Alexa Lorenzo to continue our live team coverage here alongside Kirsten Delgado. Good morning.
Yeah, good morning. And our coverage, if you're just joining us, has really been based in several counties that are dealing with a lot of flooding right now. We've seen that across our coverage area, but especially in Osceola and Seminole and Lake counties. That's where things are really building. So for that, let's get right over to certified meteorologist Brian Shields, the latest on what's happening in our area with now Tropical Storm Ian.
Yeah, downgraded to a tropical storm. That's downgraded. Our rivers, they are going up. We have flood emergencies ongoing, water rescues ongoing. We have crews out there safely in spots. And the reason we have those crews out there is because we need to let you know what developments are going to be taking on some water so you can stay safe. So we're going to get to all of that. Winds at 65, moving to the northeast at 8. The center of this right over KSC right now and about to move offshore. But again, you know, these are large systems, everything wrapping around it. And you see the rain favoring our southern zones. Kissimmee, for example, not a ton of rain right now, but all that water still is finding places to go. That's why throughout the day, the rivers are going to rise. You see this orange shading we're seeing here. I'm sorry, not orange, green shading we are seeing there. Those are the flood warnings in effect, and that includes that flash flood emergency. This is, I don't remember the last time we had one of these. Flash flood emergency, Heathrow down through Altamont Springs. This is the Little Wekiva River. Alex Walker, our reporter's there. He said a police officer, his car got stuck there. The water just came up so fast. It is the highest it's ever been on record. It is not just breaking records. It is a foot over record and still rising. So that is a flash flood emergency. They're asking people along the Little Wekiva River to please seek higher ground immediately. They do have emergency officials in the area, and we'll get a live report from Alex Walker. We'll have that just ahead there. That is very important. Seminole County, we got you covered. If I'm not mentioning your county, it's probably a good thing right now. Heaviest weather working its way through Daytona Beach. Here, not as much. Still gusty winds. Center again right over KSC right now. It's sitting right over the visitor complex. The center of this pinwheeling in the heavier weather. Still gusty winds. Marion, Sumter, and Lake back into orange, and still some heavier rain just around Winter Park, Maitland North through Sanford, Deltona, New Smyrna Beach. We had our Daytona Beach tower cam. We had it on TV, and then it got knocked over and it was upside down. And we'll have the video of that to show you ahead. It just kind of got ripped off there in Daytona Beach. But again, Wilbur by the Sea right now, Ponce Inlet, Dunlop Ave, Port Orange. You get by the Cracked Egg as you get toward Daytona Beach shores. That's where we have some of the worst weather right now. And then swinging up the coast, that'll move through Daytona, South Daytona, Daytona Beach itself, and then into Ormond Beach and Holly Hill. Palm Coast, Flagler Beach, we have that erosion, of course, ongoing. Heavier weather will be sliding in. Now, the rain totals, look at this swath of rain. Tons of colors here. Point being, northern Osceola, orange into Seminole, parts of Brevard. We're over a foot now. We could see upwards of 2 feet of rain. These numbers kind of lag behind what we've had, so we may top out around 2 feet as far as that rain is concerned, and about 16 inches of rain by the New Smyrna Speedway over the last 24 hours. Winds right now, sustained winds, so that's that constant wind. 39 in Orlando, so that's tropical storm conditions. 48 as we get into Daytona Beach. Still the gust around 70 miles per hour in Daytona Beach. They are asking everyone to stay, of course, off the roads all across Central Florida, but there's debris in the air, especially in Volusia, in Flagler. So please, again, stay inside. Stay inside. And this little donut hole here, this represents kind of a dead spot because that's where the center of Ian is, and that will move offshore pretty soon. But as it does, heaviest weather, Flagler, Volusia, watching that. This is 2 o'clock, and still behind it, you get gusty winds. We're going to dry out as the day goes on. This system tries to depart, but still winds 30, 40 miles per hour, if not more, as we get into this evening. The rivers will still be rising through the day, and branches are still going to fall because they're all weekend from above. So we have lots to cover this morning. We are going to take you through it. I want to get into some of the winds, speaking of which, with my good friend Rusty. We've been here all night together tracking this storm for you. Let's get the latest on the winds for it later today.
Yeah, Brian, so you mentioned how we're going to be drying out, and you would think, okay, Ian is beginning to collapse, so we are going to start to see those winds diminish. However, when you get what we call dry air intrusion, you're actually pulling some of the mid-level winds, which are always stronger than the surface winds, down to the surface, and we're actually going to see some good wind gusts. These are the different computer models here for the Orlando area. 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts still, at lunchtime on the GFS model and about 45 on the IBM and Euro. The bottom line is we still expect at least tropical storm force gusts through the lunchtime hour for us here. Things will begin to alleviate a little bit by the evening hours, but we're still going to have some 30+ mile-an-hour winds as we get towards evening. Friday morning, still a bit breezy, nothing bad at all, but still about 20 to 25. And then as we head into Friday and Saturday, the winds will become much calmer. Brian mentioned the winds in Daytona Beach. We had a 76 mile-an-hour wind gust earlier overnight. Hurricane force wind gusts, and they're still near that strength. You can see future track keeps over 50 mile-an-hour winds through 5 p.m. this evening, still in the 30 to maybe even higher than that on the European model. On the European model, the reason why the winds are stronger is because it tries to take it right up the coastline where we could have some lashing onshore winds. And then as we get into Friday morning, again, the European is still stronger, but we'll eventually see those winds die down by about Friday. So this is the live look from the Daytona camera. Unfortunately, it is gone. And again, we lost the signal from that, but I'm showing you that again because now we have to watch out for the coastal issues as well. We will be going towards a high tide at 11 a.m. When we had that 76 mile-an-hour wind, we were right at low tide. But now, beginning in about an hour, the water's going to start to creep back up, and we're going to have to see what the additional 1 to 3 foot storm surge from northern Brevard County to Volusia County will bring. There is still the storm surge warning for Flagler County, 3 to 5, maybe a 4 to 6 foot storm surge there as they come up on high tide as well. So coastal erosion, some beach and dune issues there, and obviously the issues for some coastal flooding will be with us and exacerbated by the higher tide later on this morning. We're going to keep a really close eye on that and our inland river flooding. Again, when it comes to the flooding aspect of Ian in Central Florida, unfortunately, we are just getting started, and still some areas, even as of now, are at record levels and will only go higher. We'll have much more on that coming up in a couple of minutes. Right now, let's get back to Kirsten and Darlene.
All right, thank you so much, Rusty. I have to tell you, it has been really impressive to see just how much water is out there in our local communities. I've been watching our broadcast here for the last hour and a half or so after just getting a little bit of rest. And I want to go back now to Channel 9's Demi Johnson, who has been live all morning for us in Volusia County. Demi, you know, the changes that you are experiencing now from yesterday to today, I know you're new to the area, but you've been doing an incredible job showing us a perspective there. What are you seeing now?
Hey, Darlene. Happy to see you, hear you joining us this morning. Just a little bit ago, we were on the ground in Daytona Beach, and we decided it wasn't safe. We started to see lights flashing off and on, sparking electricity. We also saw more debris flying around, as Brian and Rusty have been mentioning. The Daytona Beach Shores Department also put out on social media that it's really not safe for people to be on the ground right now. So that's why we moved up. We're in a parking garage, but we can still give you a good view of what's happening. You can see the winds, and you feel those gusts right before you guys came to us. Myself and my photographer Mateo both almost got knocked off of our feet by one of those gusts, and we're standing in a parking garage. So it really is powerful. Also notice the water, how it's moving around, and I've been saying this throughout the morning that it's a mix of rain and it's a mix of salt water, and I know that because it's hitting me in the face and I can taste it. So it's just really incredible to see the water moving around and how much the wind is. Even down here in the city, the wind, or the buildings, have sort of created a tunnel for the wind and the rain. You can see some of the water coming off of the top of the hotels in high rises downtown, but on the ground and around the area, it's just kind of so it really is like a tunnel down here right now, and that's created kind of a recipe for disaster when it comes to debris and things blowing around. So again, really not safe for people to be out. That's why we're up here. That's why we're not on the ground anymore. But we'll go back down there as soon as it is safe, and we'll show you guys what we're seeing there. But for now, we're going to stay up here and give you updates from up here in the parking garage. Back to you guys.
You can even hear in that live shot the wind gusts, and she said it's like a tunnel, and you can actually hear that in her live shot when she was on the ground before. She just put the mic out, and you can hear it whistling. I mean, we can't really speak enough to the intensity of this storm, even as a tropical storm right now. So from the coast, we're actually going to get to Osceola County, where we're going to get to Sabrina Majora right now. She's been with us in Osceola County all morning.
Right, so right now we're at the intersection of Central Avenue and Vine Street, and now that the sun is coming up, we're starting to see what this flooding is actually looking like, how deep it is. If you look at this intersection, there are parts that are very, very deep. Now, the sun is coming up, but just a couple moments ago, the lights on this street, on Vine Street, actually just went out. So we're still dealing with a lot of power outages, etc. First responders are having to get through this intersection, but we've seen a lot of cars, a lot more cars on this road than we'd like to see, a lot more cars than we should be seeing right now. The best thing you can do, as we've kind of reiterated all morning, is just to be staying inside, not going onto these streets. It's very difficult and dangerous to be driving out in Osceola County right now. We had a lot of difficulty getting to where we are right now, and leaving this location is difficult as well. We are safe, though. We are able location. I want to show you what this flooding is looking like and how it's impacting some of the businesses. If you look, I kind of direct you this way, you can see the Popeyes there. That water from this intersection is spilling straight through those doors. We also see Tire Kingdom here is also getting some flooding, but some of the worst flooding is down this way. If you look at Children's Castle, we're taking a little bit of a walk here. You can see just how bad this flooding is. I mean, it is really tall there, and we just showed you that street in the distance is Cypress Street, right past Castle. Cypress Street is right there. That's completely flooded as well. So just a lot of flooding in general in Osceola County right now, in Kissimmee especially, where we are right now. We're continuing to monitor this flooding, and we'll continue to give you guys updates as we see more. But for now, let's throw it back to you guys in studio.
All right, thank you. And I remember seeing Sabrina about an hour ago. She's been, you know, keeping us up to date about the child care center there, and you see it just underwater. And I know a lot of people are without power right now, but it's quite, you know, it's quite possible that some people, especially business owners, are finding out about the extreme flooding impacting their properties while watching us here live on air or through our streaming apps at WFTV Now. So our thoughts are with you. We are here with you, here to help you get through it as we continue to try to deal with the impacts of what is now a tropical storm. We're going to go to Orange County now. And earlier you all were talking about Windermere and some of the roads around there. I was able to reach out to law enforcement there, and I'm now just getting a message from the police chief there telling me that maybe in an hour he'll be able to go on the air with us. But what I've been able to find out is that there are trees down everywhere. He says Chase Road is underwater. If you're familiar with the Windermere area, Chase Road is the main road that gets you into Windermere. But that area, though, that road is surrounded by bodies of water. You've got Lake Butler there, you've got Lake Down. It's surrounded by water, so it's no surprise that Chase Road leading into Windermere underwater now. So we'll continue to monitor that situation, but we want to get back to downtown Orlando for now.
We do. That's where we have our Christy Turner. She's been there for quite a while. Are you still over by Lake Lucerne? And our photographer there, Tom, who's behind the camera, really tells us he's been covering this area for 20 years and really hasn't seen anything like this in the metro area.
Yeah, he's a seasoned vet. He's been doing this for 20 plus years, about 25 here in Central Florida. So he's been in this industry, in this area for a long time, and he says he has not seen this type of flooding in these specific spots ever. So what we're seeing is pretty crazy. So technically right now I am standing in Lake Lucerne because the lake has overflowed into the sidewalk and in some portions into the road, specifically down there and at the intersection. So this is wild to see this flooding. We knew this was going to be a major rain event in Central Florida, and you can see the flooding that we are seeing this morning. A lot of people are going to be waking up to widespread flooding this morning. We did have a little break in the rain, which we really appreciated. It was a nice relief from what we've been dealing with all morning, that torrential down. Now it's started to pick up a little bit here. As you can see, we're getting knocked around by that wind. So, you know, conditions, it's coming. See, it's nice. It's just kind of back and forth. You never know when the wind is going to pick up, like what we just saw right now. But again, that rain's still coming down. So we are seeing lots of flooding in the downtown Orlando area, even all the way down by Orlando Health this morning, down on South Orange Avenue. So we will continue to monitor the conditions for everyone while you guys stay safe and inside. We have seen some utility crews leaving, so that's a good sign, for people who have their power right now. There's tens of thousands of people without power right now. So hopefully, once it is safe to do so, those utility crews can start to work to get the power back on. But for now, that's the very latest live here in downtown Orlando. Christy Turner, Channel 9, Eyewitness News.
And now we're going to go south from Orange County into Seminole. That's where we found our Q McRae. He's been out by Geneva all morning long.
Yeah, and Q, I know he's trying to get his flashlight. I love that he's been using that this morning to try to show us the area there around him. But thank you for showing us this. We're now seeing live on the air vehicles still trying to make it there through the roadways. This is not the time to wander around your neighborhoods, even if you're asking, you're asking questions, trying to see what's going on. Now is the time to be indoors and be safe. Q, within the last 30 minutes or so, we found out that Alan Harris with emergency management over there in Seminole County is preparing to give us an update at 7:30. Now that it's daylight, we get better perspective of just how significant the flooding is there.
Yeah, and things are bad, to say the least. You just watched the pickup truck make its way down Jungle Road here, but here in Geneva, in most parts of Geneva, there are drainage ditches on both sides of the road. And what's happening here is that they're way over capacity. Now, again, this is Jungle Road. There is a drainage ditch that runs along this part of the road. And we noticed this a little bit earlier, now that the sun's coming up. I'm not sure if you can see that whirlpool over there. Well, that whirlpool is going down to a culvert that's going under the road and then coming out on this side of the road. And you can see just how much water is draining over here. But here's the thing. The water's not just making it through the culvert. It's also, if you pan over to the left, making its way over to this side of the road, over the road, because the water is just that high. So, oh, you okay? So if we pan over to the right here, you'll see how this property, this home, now has a lake in front of it. And within the last 30, 35 minutes, the rain out here has really died down a lot, but the flooding speaks for itself. I mean, this entire property, luckily for them, the water's not up to their front door at the moment, but the front yard, the backyard, the side yard, completely covered with this storm runoff. And there's Mr. Jacob. Now, I'm about to, go ahead. Here. Here, I know we talked earlier, yeah. but we're actually live on air right now. Okay. So, Mr. Jacob, what are you dealing with? I know you told me earlier you have 2 homes in this area. What are you seeing?
Just water rising. Like I say, we'll see by this afternoon how much more it's going to rise, but that's mainly what we're just looking for.
And you said it was also reminiscent of storms in the past. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes. Yeah, last year, or what was it, Irma? Irma. Like I say, Irma is when we had our highest peak that I've seen in my lifetime. And like I say, I think we're going to see it again.
And, I was going to ask you as well. I know you're driving around. Explain why you're out here in the first place.
Like I say, I went to check on my sister. She lives down the street, and my other house is right around the corner here, so I just want to make sure everything was good there. And, of course, my neighbors and friends just going around checking everything out.
There you go.
I think I've lived here my whole life, so.
Yeah. And this is something you haven't necessarily experienced this early in the storm, right?
This early, no.
Gotcha.
Yeah, I've never seen it this early, this much.
Understood. Mr. Jacobs, I know you have some family and friends to check out. Thanks for stopping again. I appreciate it, buddy. All right. Same to you. Well, there you have it. And again, that's a man who's lived here in Geneva for a very long time. Have spoken to a number of residents here, and they told me basically the same thing. They've seen flooding or expected flooding like this here, but not so early. And I mean, you can see in this live shot, the rain keeps on coming down, and tropical storm now, Ian, is still in this area. There's more rain that's going to fall. So that's where the concerns lie right now for the people here in Geneva. Back to you guys inside.
Our time now is 7:18, just about 7:19 here this morning, and you've been watching our continuous coverage of, we're now tracking what is now Tropical Storm Ian here. Our team of reporters have been scattered throughout the area for more than 24 hours now. Our team of meteorologists getting us updates as we speak, but we do have some breaking news that we want to report to you this morning. It is unfortunate. We are receiving information from the Volusia County Sheriff's Office this morning that a 72-year-old man has died there in the Deltona area. Volusia County Sheriff's Office says that he went outside at some point to drain his pool, and his wife realized she hadn't seen him, reported him missing, said he disappeared, and Volusia County Sheriff's Office reporting that they found him on Point Sienna Lane behind a canal in that area. They found him, and you know, thoughts and prayers with that family first and foremost, but we certainly hope that people will continue to stay safe. Now is the time to just stay inside as the storm continues to pass through.
Yeah, especially now that we have the sunrise, you know, people are going to say, well, let me get out. Just like we saw that man talking to Q in his live shot. That's why Q asked him, why are you out here? Because it's certainly not safe. And so now's not the time to be outdoors. And it's something that I'm seeing a lot on social media from a lot of agencies. They keep tweeting out, putting on social media, now is not the time to be on the roads. There's debris, there's possible manholes, there's potential critters in that water. Stay off the roads, stay indoors. Even if you just think you're going outside for something quick, you never know what can happen.
Again, Volusia County Sheriff's Office reporting to us this morning the death of a 72-year-old man in the Deltona area on Point Sienna Lane. Apparently wandered outside to try to drain his pool. They found his body in a canal behind there. I pulled the area up on a map here because I wanted to see what kind of water was around there. So I can see where there are two canals there surrounding Point Sienna Lane there in Deltona, and it appears to flow into Lake Bethel. There in the area. If you are familiar with this part of Volusia County and Deltona, the major roadway there is Enterprise Osteen Road. So this neighborhood just right off of Enterprise Osteen Road. So just a tragedy, very unfortunate situation.
So with that, we're going to get over to our meteorologist, Brian Shields, getting us the latest on what is now Tropical Storm Ian. Okay,
all right, moving on from that, let me show you this. This was Ian. This was 18 hours ago, and I want to take you out in time with this, and you can see how quickly it collapses as it moves into our area because it loses its water source. Again, we weren't the point of impact, and again, kind of, as Rusty says, kind of blowing its top, and really almost becoming almost extra tropical, it looks like, and this will be a tropical storm though as it works its way up to South Carolina. All right, so you can see it here, winds at 65, probably less now, but we still have gusts 65 to 70 in spots in this northern core. The center is now here. Again, these points are delayed. The center is just now moving offshore of KSC. So the center moving offshore, but all this stuff still wrapping in, and we are going to have river issues for days and weeks because of this. That is the immediate life-threatening concern we have now. Some of that urban flooding ongoing. These areas here in that green, those are the ones that have been hit hard, and Rusty's going to get to the surge aspect of this in a second. This is that flash flood emergency for the Little Wekiva River. So again, we're talking about Annunciation Catholic and then points up to the north. That's where we have some of the river flooding. It is already breaking a record. It was supposed to break a record at 2 p.m. today. It has done that. It's already done it by a foot, and it's still rising. Police cruiser got stuck in here as a police officer. The water, he said, just came up too much. Alex Walker, our reporter, he is there. He will give us the very latest from that on the ground as they are trying to keep people safe. And then up toward Astor, by the way, they have been they had water rescues earlier. They were getting people out, or at least getting people out of their homes. I believe it was about 10 families they had to get out of their homes. So again, Astor, we're seeing record levels of river flooding. We've had a lot of river issues around here with Irma and Tropical Storm Faye, and this is breaking the records as far as that's concerned. Western zones, not quite as much, but still the gusty winds. And again, you see here, DeLand Daytona Beach. Heaviest weather now in Volusia County. Knocked out our camera. You saw Demi reporting with some of the debris in the air, the debris that is around. All of this onshore flow coming in. While it's not raining much now in Osceola County, the waters are still rising. Everything kind of lags behind. So the rain may cut off, but the water's still rising. Everything's got to filter and attempt to find its spot. And still some showers near Kissimmee and gusty winds over toward Hunters Creek. Downtown Orlando, it's been lessening. Winter Garden, it's been actually picking up a little bit, and it may still be enough to rip off some of those screens and some of the pools and down some of those branches. And you see the winds here, 48 in Daytona Beach. These are the sustained winds. So sustained tropical storm conditions, 39 in Orlando, 38 in Sanford, and the gusts still about 70 miles per hour in Daytona Beach. And we'll see that feeding into Flagler County. We got you covered up through Flagler County. We're going to see those very gusty winds. So this is 10 this morning, pulling offshore. It's moving offshore now. Rain still around along our coast later today, but all of us into the evening will still have those very gusty winds. Now, we've had that very strong onshore flow with us, and we have it, so our northern zone's becoming a bit of a focus. And I'm joined by Rusty McCraney. And again, Rusty, it is, I mean, we have that camera that went out. Our camera actually flipped over. There's been some debris around, and this is just pounding the coast. Rusty?
Brian, that's that beautiful camera we show you every morning from Daytona Beach, the flags, the Main Street Pier. It turned one in. We've lost its connection. You can also see some of the live shots. We have our team of reporters out across Central Florida covering this flooding. We are monitoring that. We're letting them know where to go. Brian mentioned it. I want you to see all of this onshore flow. And this is a problem because now we're going to start seeing the tidal surge beginning to come back in here, starting in an hour with high tide right around 11. Up and down the coastline, we're seeing the strongest winds that Flagler and Volusia County have seen all storm long. At 5:35, Flagler Beach recorded a 59-mile-per-hour wind gust. Again, we had a 76-mile-an-hour wind gust a little bit earlier in the Daytona Beach area. So let's talk about the storm surge. Brian really covered the inland river flooding very well. I'm monitoring the coastline. So we have a storm surge warning in effect for Flagler County. We expect a 4 to 6 foot storm surge, of course, on top of the tides, beach erosion, some of the dune issues there, but obviously coastal flooding is going to be a big concern. We hope A1A doesn't take a wallop like it did with Matthew, but we'll just have to see how much water that really piles up. We expect a 1 to 3 foot storm surge for Volusia County all the way into northern Brevard County. And again, your next high tide cycle comes your way at 11 a.m. So there will be additional feet of water trying to move on shore. We'll have our reporters in place to monitor that situation. But again, if you live in this area, you are seeing the strongest winds combined with the heaviest rain right now. It is really howling outside as tropical storm conditions continue, and from time to time I even see some lightning strikes. That's how strong the northeast side of Ian still is. Even though overall it's weakening, these winds will stay gusty for the remainder of the morning, and especially even into the afternoon hours along our northern coast. Kirsten, Darlene?
All right, Rusty, thank you for that update. And as you're looking at these cameras, you see, I mean, as light is coming in, there's rain up and down our coverage area here. Now is not the time to be on the roads. You can see cars are stuck. There on the middle camera, there is State Road 46 to I-4 West. And this is actually a live look as we're getting through Kissimmee this morning. It's our first look there. Heading to Kissimmee right now in the direction of Osceola County. We're heading there right now as we're getting our live look at the area on the way. Our first look here in terms of the sun being up and us being able to have enough light to really see what's happening in the area. A lot of wet roads there.
You know, Kirsten, what is interesting is that, you know, the rain in some of these areas is probably not really heavy right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's the wind.
Right.
The wind picking up that water from various bodies of water surrounding, and also just the rain that has fallen overnight that our team of meteorologists have told us about over the last, you know, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours or so. So it's the water that's picking up, and with that wind, you know, it looks like it's raining pretty heavily in some areas, but it really is that wind. I can't wait. Really, some of what we're going to see now that daylight is starting to come, because that gives us the perspective that we need to really share with our viewers and those who are watching on our streaming apps and maybe listening to us through our news partners at WGBO 580, the damage that we are seeing now here in Central Florida.
And here's the thing too, is that pictures now, like, this isn't a proper demonstration just because it's lightly raining now. Or illustration come over time. This is a proper illustration. Seminole County, live pictures there. The accumulation of that sometimes drizzle over time. Expanded, of course, of this weather event, right? This is what happens. This is in Seminole County right now. I believe this isn't Geneva area where Q was? I believe that's where this is. Yes. So this is
our producers just, to get clarification, because I want our viewers to know where this is happening. Q McRae has been in Geneva since we started our extensive coverage yesterday. So he's been able to show us the transition of that community and the progression over the last 24 hours or so. And as we pan the camera around, you can see, look there, if you can hear me, if you can hear me, you and your photographer can hear me, if you can just continue panning there and just show us, this is, you know, this was a road. You can see it's a road. This is where our live truck is parked there on the right. Our vehicle is huge. You've seen some of the pickup trucks that go through. They're huge. These roads are impassable. These are not roads that we should be out driving on. And this area where Q has been, this is right there along Lake Harney, an area that we know is prone to flooding. But again, when you get this kind of rain and the wind, you have that surge of water just pouring into the communities.
And as we take a look in Kissimmee, you see here people out in those waters. We've been showing you all throughout Sabrina's live shots this morning in Osceola County, roads that have been impassable. Cars been trying to go through them. Some cars got through, others got stuck. We're trying to get that live shot for you from Osceola County back, but you saw people are out there just in the water. They should not be. You don't know what's in these waters, anything from snakes or gators, manholes. You can hurt yourself if and get some sort of infection if you cut yourself. These are not situations you should put yourself in right now. What is that, half a dozen people out there? And I understand that people are anxious. You've been locked up, you know, since yesterday, and now sunlight is out and you want to get out. Now is not the time to be outdoors. We're showing you these images so you know exactly what's happening and you stay indoors.
Yeah, and for those of you just joining us on our streaming app or listening to us through 580 WGBO here, you know, you hear us tell you, don't go outside, don't go outdoors. Yesterday, we heard the governor telling us after Hurricane Irma, there were, let me just look at my notes here. I believe, 7 deaths during the storm. 77 deaths post Irma. That means those are indirect deaths. Those are deaths of people who did exactly what these folks unfortunately are doing now, going out to see the damage. And the bigger issue, you know, yes, there are alligators potentially in the waterways, debris, but we've had a lot of wind. There are probably power lines down in areas, and if you are just joining us, you may not have heard the news that we have also had our first reported death over in the Volusia County area. The sheriff's office over there reporting that a 72-year-old man at some point went out to let the water out of his pool. This is in Deltona on Poinciana Lane. His wife couldn't find him, and Volusia County Sheriff's Office emergency responders over there found him in a canal there, and this is right off of Enterprise Osteen Road there, and those canals flow into Lake Bethel. So now is not the time to go out.
No, it's not. And with that in mind, we just showed you that image just a moment ago of some folks in those floodwaters in Osceola County. Let's get back over to Sabrina Majori, who's been live there all morning for us. Sabrina, what are you seeing out there?
Some information. So this man told me that down at the end of this street, down at the end of the street is a lake where potentially a person is inside of a car, stuck, not able to get out. We are walking towards that way. We just got to this location. We were trying to get to a second location, but as I mentioned before, you know, it's really hard to drive around in Osceola County. So this is a lake that's pretty much over flooded. I'm trying to see how far we can go. But you can see in the distance some people there, and that lake has just completely come onto the streets. If you turn back this way, you can look towards Tiffany Square. I'll show you that in a second. These are apartment buildings that are also completely flooded. We did get some information, again, as I mentioned, speaking to some people who were able to walk a little bit down, kind of telling us what has happened. Okay? Okay, so they said we're going to try and walk a little bit further down safely and see what we can see. We'll have to kind of go around to the sidewalk. We're going to try and get a little bit closer, see what we can get, and come back to you guys. Let me gather a little bit more information, see what people are seeing here, and then we'll have an update in just a little bit. But for now, reporting live in Kissimmee, I'm Sabrina Majore, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Sabrina, for that. I'm glad we were able to get some perspective there, but certainly, while it is nice to help our neighbors, we are not, you know, first responders, and so we need to make sure that these are happening safely. We have an update now coming into our newsroom in Seminole County, where we've also seen some significant flooding.
Let's listen in. National Weather Service overnight through the emergency broadcast system. Due to flash flooding. Flash flooding started to occur around 3:15 and has continued throughout the morning. We have unprecedented historic flooding here in Seminole County. Communities reporting flooding include Altamont Springs, Geneva, Lake Mary, Heathrow, Wekiva, Winter Springs, and really just about anywhere in the county you can find localized flooding. Most all tributaries, the St. Johns River and Little Wekiva River, are all in flood stage. Along the Little Wekiva River, we are now at a historic level, never been at this point in recorded history. We have flood terrain vehicles from the fire department and law enforcement out in these areas right now, and have also requested that the National Guard, which was actually staging here in Sanford, to assist us as well, and they're sending 10 vehicles over to help us as we do rescues in those areas and save individuals as necessary. Our teams have been out this morning and we are reporting dozens of traffic signals that are out. I want to say treat each intersection as a four-way stop, and I know that's going to be echoed a couple times, but that's how important it is for us. We don't want any loss of life because of a traffic signal issue. Only travel on the roads if it is extremely critical. So if you're a power provider, if you are a utility worker, if you work at a hospital and you need to get from that critical infrastructure, that is a reason, of course, to be out on the roadways. If you can stay off the roadways, of course, we are asking you to do so. Some of our lift stations are without power. Our water utilities are out using mobile generators to pump those stations, and then they move to the next one, and so on. And they have started that. As soon as the sun comes up, they'll be starting that process. Right now, we have over 80,000 customers here in Seminole County without power. Duke and FPL are positioned to respond once it is safe to do so, and we have great partnerships with them. They're sitting just right back here, prepared to respond with their teams. We ask you to please report damage to us. Individuals can report damage by filling out a form at prepareseminole.org. You can do that. It's phone friendly. If you go to prepareseminole.org and under the damage assessment tab, this will allow us to track any critical needs. Damage assessment teams are ready to respond after the storm. These damage collection numbers will help us to get assistance much quicker to those that may need it right after the storm passes and it becomes safe to do so. With that, I would like to turn it over to the fire chief for additional comments. Chief?
Thank you, Alan. Good morning. As Alan mentioned, we've had many residents without power. As we keep stressing, generator safety is of great importance, and you must keep them 20 feet away from your house and make sure they're never in an area that's not ventilated. Due to extreme flooding throughout the county, we are getting 911 calls this morning of stranded vehicles in the water. We're stressing again to everyone, we need your help. Stay off the roads. But if you have to be on the roads, remember, anytime you come to a flooded area, remember, turn around, don't drown. Do not attempt to cross flowing water. As little as 6 inches of water can knock you off feet. Electrocution is the second leading cause of death in flooding situations. Do not go into the water. As always, our personnel are here to save and protect lives and property, but the safety of our first responders is also important. We don't want our first responders going through dangerous floodwaters unnecessarily. Call 911 for emergencies. Remember, it's easy to forget that you were using what you were using when the power went off. To avoid safety hazards, unplug or turn off appliances and equipment that you had running prior to the power going off. We've had fires start in the past from ovens being turned back on and things such as pizza boxes being left on top of them. The oven turns back on and that can start a fire. In the fire department last night, we had a total of 250 calls to 911. Predominantly, most of them pertain to downed power lines, some motor vehicle accidents, and a lot of mechanical fire alarms. We had a high volume of electrical hazard type calls with electric panels on houses. Some of these were dependent on oxygen tanks and needed that power, and we evacuated those residents. Currently, because of flooding and the number of 911 calls we are receiving, we have begun delaying response to non-emergency calls such as mechanical fire alarms, trees down, and power lines down. This will be a slow and steady recovery. Please be patient and keep yourself safe. Now I'd like to turn it over to Sheriff Dennis Lima.
Thank you, Chief, and good morning. Deputies and police officers throughout Seminole County were out throughout the night patrolling the streets, and again, I want to thank our citizens and our businesses for self-regulating. Hardly any traffic that was on the road throughout the night and again this morning. I want to thank all of our businesses for, again, closing businesses down, securing. There's nothing going on out there. There's no reason why anyone should be on the roadway. All the businesses are closed. If somebody wants to get kind of a glimpse of what's going on, you just have to tune in to whatever local news station that you watch, and they're giving good video footage of unprecedented flooding and some of the hazards that are out there. A lot of the stop signs that are normally positioned on poles are gone. Make sure you're being mindful of those areas, as well as, once again, treat any intersection that does not have power as a four-way stop. A significant amount of power loss means that these intersections are just open, and it's, again, if you're on the road, make sure that it's on the road for a purpose. You're working in one of these high-risk positions, you need to be in there, but just don't go joyriding around. Again, conditions are very dangerous out there. No wake. Alan Harris will be signing an executive order at our request here in a few moments that require that there be no wake on a roadway. Typically, we talk about wake, we're talking about waterways and other areas, but we have had problems in the past with people flying through roadways, shooting up a wake into people's yards, on their mailboxes, and potentially doing damage. It is incredibly dangerous to do that, so there'll be an executive order here in Seminole County that does not allow motorists driving up and down the road through water to throw a wake on other areas. In addition to that, we're also going to put an executive order in for no motorized boats on the roadways. And again, you know, we understand that there are certain circumstances where people may need assistance getting back to their home. Non-motorized boats are going to be perfect for that. The Seminole County Sheriff's Office stands ready to assist citizens when necessary with our heavy vehicle and equipment into flooded areas. We have 5 of those heavy vehicles. We've requested another 5 from the United States military, and of course the National Guard is assisting us with 10 of their vehicle trucks as well. So that executive order will be no wake on the roadways, and then again, no motorized boats on the roadways. The last thing we want people is going up 1792 or one of the other thoroughfares throughout Seminole County with a motorized boat. I want to then thank the public safety professionals that have been out working all night. Many of them have received damage to their own homes, and their families are at home. We had a deputy have a tree fall on a parked patrol vehicle, but it could have been a lot more damaging and a lot worse to human life here in Seminole County. We're not through this yet. The rain will continue, which means the flooding will continue, and all the dangers are still out there. But again, thank you for self-regulating. Thank you for staying off the roads, and thank you for being mindful of all of these hazardous conditions. That concludes our briefing right now. We'll come back to you when we have more information to share later today.
All right, if you're just joining us, that was a press conference with officials in Seminole County telling us about the situation there. We've been covering this for quite a long time this morning regarding the Little Wekiwa River. Of course, Brian Shields told you about 90 minutes ago that they're seeing historic flooding there that they haven't seen. And a quote here from that press conference was, "Never been at this point in recorded history," to show you the magnitude of the flooding of some of the rivers and ponds and that sort of situation there in Seminole County, specifically referring to the Little Wekiwa River, really at flood stage, its max right now, and never happened before in recorded history.
Unprecedented localized flooding is what Alan Harris with Emergency Management said. As soon as he said that, I asked our certified meteorologist, Brian Shields, how much, just for perspective, how much did they have back during Tropical Storm Faye? I remember being out in some of our counties and communities during that time. He said anywhere between 10 to 20 inches.
And this came quicker. This came, like Faye lasted days and days and days. So this is piled up in a hurry. And we had a wet September too.
Yeah, and so, I remember being on the air then, Brian, thinking that's a lot of water. And now, this is really, it's gonna be some time, but we're gonna help our communities get through it. We're gonna keep you informed. We want to get you over to traffic anchor Alexa Lorenzo, who has been monitoring our roadways. She has some, what I think is just unbelievable video. Alexa.
And Darlene, you heard them say it in that briefing that a lot of the roads in Seminole County this morning are impassable. Right here, this is State Road 46, that ramp to I-4. You have that stalled car there, halfway already up with water. That car halfway in those flood waters this morning. A lot of flooding through this area. This is shut down after that car got stalled. It's just too much water to drive through. You do not want to be in that situation. And take a look at Doppler 9 radar with our live traffic tracker, put together all of those closures, all of those icons indicating flooding. Streets are impassable. And Kirsten, Darlene, we continue to see water rescues reported. But what's interesting with this is these water rescues aren't on lakes, they aren't on ponds, they aren't on creeks. These are on intersections. They're going in there water rescue style with some of those, possibly those boats to get people that are stuck in their cars off of these roadways. So we need to be mindful and remind people, do not drive. You do not want to find yourself in this situation. And in Windermere, as we look at Chase Road and Conroy Windermere Road, all the roads surrounding this area are mostly shut down. Again, impassable through this stretch. And as we get some of that light this morning, look at the debris right here stretched across the 408. This is near the Pine Hills Toll Plaza. You can see those branches there leaning over the highway. This is a lot of debris that crews will have to go in and clean before they can open some of these closed roads. So we will continue to monitor this. There is a lot of work, dangerous conditions on our roads this morning.
And as we go back to our reporters, of course, we're looking at all those cameras that Alexa just showed you, but we have reporters in Osceola and Cocoa and Lake. And now let's get back to Sabrina Majori. About 10-15 minutes ago, we showed you a scene there where people were saying that somebody in a car might be in a lake behind you. Sabrina, what's the latest here?
So speaking to those people a little bit further, we have a little bit of a better understanding of what may be happening. So essentially there's a lake in the distance. If you zoom in, there's a lake in the distance that has overflowed. And if you turn slightly to the right, you can see that there is a car in the middle of this road. We don't know at this time whether or not anyone is inside of that car. We have not seen anyone attempt to get out of that car at this time. But what is really striking me right now is just how much water we're seeing. I mean, it is spread out throughout the area, and now we're getting a very strong gust of wind. It's making it a little bit difficult to speak, but we're seeing that this water from the lake is just continuing to spill out, continuing to affect homes. If you kind of turn this way, you can see some of the homes that are being affected. with this water spilling into them. Now, the person we spoke to just moments ago told us in Spanish that they are at Tiffany Square Apartments and that the water started coming towards them around 4 a.m. Those are the apartments back there. They said that they evacuated their apartments around 4 a.m. and that they had about 25 centimeters of water inside of their apartment when they left. So obviously this is a pretty serious situation here. We're seeing lots of damage. It's very honestly scary to see just how much water has kind of spilled onto their streets at this point. We're continuing to kind of work for updates about this situation. As soon as we get an update, we will go ahead and bring that to you as well. But that is what we have so far. So for now, reporting live in Kissimmee, I'm Sabrina Majore, Channel 9 Eyewitness News.
Sabrina, thank you. And throughout her live shots this morning in Osceola County, even before we had the sunrise and light to see what was happening, we saw a lot of cars going through flooded intersections, and a lot of what we saw was bigger trucks like the one you just saw that was submerged in that water being able to make it through. But just because you have a bigger truck or an SUV doesn't mean that gives you the right to go through these areas, doesn't mean it's going to be passable. None of this is passable for a compact car or for an SUV, and that is the perfect illustration, unfortunately, in the bad use of that word, of why you don't make those attempts to pass areas. You don't know what's underneath. You don't know how deep that water is, even if you're in an SUV or, in that case, as you saw in that submerged water, a pickup truck.
You know, and I'm getting messages from people throughout the area, you know, sending photos and everything. It just is unthinkable. We knew that this was coming, but I don't know that even some of the emergency responders, we just heard from Alan Harris over in Seminole County, and even the fire chief over there talking about, you know, the unprecedented amount of water that we're seeing. We want to take you now to Channel 9's Ashley Edlin. She is live on Indian River Drive and Dixon Boulevard. Ashley, you are in Brevard County in the Cocoa area. It looks like a washout behind you.
Yeah, you can see, actually, if you take a look at my boots as I'm walking back here, you can see the water starts to get pretty deep pretty quickly. We actually just saw the Cocoa Police Department out here, and I was able to talk to them for a second and ask them, you know, what exactly they're doing. They told us they're out here, of course, to help people that need it, but they're also out here to block off some of these roadways because they don't want anybody getting stuck. Some of these are impassable. Now, I just saw a truck, a gray truck, drive down that. Seems to be doing okay. Some of the Cocoa Police Department, their vehicles have been able to get through okay. They're just out here just making sure that nobody gets stuck. You can see if you come back out over here, you can see that the water gets pretty deep with the sidewalk. This is the Indian River Lagoon, and you can tell that the water just has been washing up on this road. Now, another interesting thing, I was actually able to talk to a woman who lives here, and she was able to briefly tell me that, you know, last night around 2 o'clock, the flooding got so bad here that she was actually considering leaving. But she then looked at the road and said, okay, I don't think I'm going to be able to do this. This is not a good idea. So she's walking around today just, you know, looking at the debris on the road and looking at the flooding and, you know, talking to the Cocoa Police Department about everything. And if you take a look over here, you can see there's the Cocoa Police Department is in their truck. I don't know if you can see their headlights right now, but they're coming through this area, like I said, starting to block off some of these roadways, starting to talk to some of these neighbors. So that's what's happening right now. We're getting light rain again. It seems to start and stop. So, of course, you know, we're going to keep you guys updated. But for now, live in Cocoa, Ashley Edlin, Channel 9, Eyewitness News.
So much going on, and we have all these cameras throughout Central Florida giving us live pictures of what's happening in real time with this rain event. We knew it was going to be, you know, our meteorologist said, the governor said, a major rain and water event for a prolonged amount of time. I know you guys are getting antsy and you want to go outdoors, but this morning, not the time. We're still expecting rain into late this evening in our area before things actually die down with that, but the wind gusts will still be. And then this is a long time to deal with a hurricane, and it's not what we're used to, right? We're kind of used to being done in a matter of hours or a day, but this is going to go into this evening. So we just got to be a little more patient and stay indoors because we're seeing too many things happen outdoors that are unsafe.
Channel 9's Alexa Lorenzo doing incredible. I don't even know how she still has her eyelids open this morning, but incredible reporting that she is doing, monitoring our roadways here, because we know that even though emergency responders have told us and have told you live on our air, you know, to stay off the roads, we still continue to see people on the roadways. But Alexa, you have information, new information about a major road closure.
Yeah, so much so, Darlene, that they have now had to shut down the turnpike. As you see it right there on this live camera, they're zooming on out, but there is so much flooding, my goodness, on the turnpike right there. This is a 15-mile closure of the turnpike. The Florida Highway Patrol, again, stationed there to shut this down because of all the flooding. So this is actively happening. They are actively working to close it. Again, a 15-mile closure. This is by I-4, by Kirkman, that stretch of the turnpike for drivers this morning. The flooding through this area is too much to handle, and we continue to see cars getting stuck, lives being put at risk for those driving. So the turnpike, again, shut down for drivers this morning. I'm going to look through some other cameras here that really show the depth of that water and keep bringing you those throughout the show.
Thanks, Alexa. Even a semi, you see, I want to stay on this shot for a moment because, Alexa, if I'm right, this is the area right around Millennia Mall. If you are familiar with the area or new to the area, everyone knows Millennia Mall at Millennia. And so, you know, this really it provides us with incredible perspective in terms of why we should all be at home right now. There is so much water out there on the roads and in neighborhoods. It just isn't safe to be out right now.
Yeah, it is really, really scary, Darlene, and this closure is such a big closure. It's the turnpike from about the 408 all the way into Osceola County. So things are really bad when it comes to flooding in this area, so much so that they need to close it down.
So are they forcing people? They're forcing people, drivers off the highway.
That's what it looks like.
I just want to make sure, because if people are watching and if you're only able to hear us, what we are seeing, you can see a line of Florida Highway Patrol vehicles there aligned across the highway, blocking it so that traffic cannot continue to get through that area on the turnpike, and diverting them off of this major roadway. And Alexa, I know we've been telling people to stay off the road, but we see quite a few trucks, semis going through. These are people, maybe they didn't know. They're passing through the Central Florida area.
And then they find themselves having to pull off to the side, having to stop because they didn't anticipate the severity of what they ended up driving through. So again, this is a major closure on the turnpike, 15 miles. We will keep all eyes on it, but this is an active closure right now. So like Darlene stressed, they are moving people off the road, saying you got to get off here. Ahead is closed, and this will remain shut down as we see those flood waters continue to rise there.
It's out of view right now, but I'm actually surprised the opposite lane of the highway there. Cars are continuously going through there. You see it now in the corner, right corner of your screen, cars going the opposite direction, right? So while they're blocking off this area, I'm sure it's only a matter of time until they block off the opposite end as well. We see another car coming down there, and will be, you know, told that they have to follow the road and exit because you have patrol cars there blocking that area right now. It's incredible. There's another car on the opposite side there.
Listen, it's not easy to close 15, 16, 17 miles of one of our biggest highways. This is, again, an active closure that they are working to get all the cars off the road. So we will keep watching it because this is going to take some time to make sure that all of these lanes, both directions of the turnpike through this major stretch, are shut down.
You are watching continuous coverage of Channel 9 Eyewitness News as we continue to track Ian, which is now a tropical storm. Our coverage continues right after this break.